So Nellie and I started a topic of desire, not the topic of desire, right? This is something that has been going on for centuries that is talked about in Buddhism. And we're trying to look at healthy desire, or how is desire healthy? How does it operate? How is it important? And I'm reading a novel, listening to a novel. It's not reading a novel. I'm listening to it as an audiobook. It's called The Covenant of Water. And it's written by Abraham Verghese. And the book tells a story in India of a Malayali family. And they live in a specific state, state of Kerala. And it's an intergenerational novel. So it's spanning 3 generations. And in the novel, the main kind of gist of it is that in each generation, some of the family members die by drowning. And it's from an affliction that they don't know what it is. They refer to it as the condition. Interesting, huh? The condition. But the condition is secret and not told to each generation until later in their lives. And they inherit the consequences of the way they try to manage the condition, which ends up being a disease that's only known later and not known years ago. So the novel is quite complex. And for me, in reading and listening, I keep saying reading and listening to this novel, it is a tale of desire. I just see it woven in and out of the everyday interactions, in the happiness and the tragedies that come from this intergenerational story. And I was thinking, it would likely be the same, that I could see my desires more distinctly if somebody wrote about the last 3 generations of my family. That somehow having that splayed out in front of you, you can find the similarities, the differences, though in this case, the tragedies just felt abundant. And it was a very heavy book with the weight of the caste system of colonialism and of social upheaval. But in one chapter, one that I read relatively recently, and this is a spoiler alert, so I just want to let people know, Elsie has moved into her new husband's home and estate. And she's an artist. She wants to continue her painting. And he is a writer and has written some significant pieces. But her husband promises to help support her endeavor to become an artist and to not fall into the familial, traditional female role of the time. And she endeavors to support him as an artist, as a writer, to continue to develop and refine his trade. But in their bedroom, there is a tree, a jackfruit tree, that blocks the light of the window. And she is so wired towards looking at light and drawing it and having it affect and influence the way she sees the world and her world. And because it's blocked, she asks him, could you please, take down this tree? Well, the tree actually is a sentimental and has huge significant value to her husband. And it's because he wrote a piece on it, the jackfruit tree, that became very popular and actually helped him develop a whole social plan of giving out food to people in the area. And there was a lot of significance to this tree. So hence the struggle began, these 2 desires, one to take down the tree, another one to not take down the tree. And the story unfolds of how they each try to get their own desires met. And neither of them knew that it would be the source of their child's death. It had huge consequences, this tree, for them and their family. And when their child died impaled by the tree because he fell off it from a high branch, that she blamed him, he blamed her, they both blamed God. It was just, it was just horrible. It's really hard to see. And in the story, as I could see it unfold, I could also look back with the characters and look at all their if-onlys. If only I had knew what would come from this. If only I had knew how important this was to the other person. If only I had known the consequences. So I've been thinking about how in tragic situations, it's really hard to see the conditionality. Those are some of the hardest times for us to fill out the conditions and understand more of what are some of the causes and the reasons for why things happened the way they did. And it feels like the glasses we wear in those kinds of situations are more like a knee-jerk of assigning blame or feeling self-shame. And yet the results of our desires are so much more complex. And how do we get to changing our glasses to something like kaleidoscope glasses, where we can interpret more results, different results, parallel results, contradictory results from what we are seeing and holding? And I liked kind of the idea of wearing kaleidoscope glasses, because actually you would see like all these different dimensions. You also probably couldn't see right in front of you. I mean, they're really not very practical. But the idea of us looking at the complexity of our situations isn't just because we want to make things more complicated or we want to compound complexity. It's because there's often things that we're not seeing. And this idea of understanding conditionality is to become more aware of the things that we can't see and start to see some of the underlying causes and conditions that are in many of the situations we live with. So it's interesting to think about that. It's harder also when I can't see complexity. It's harder, it's easier to assign blame or to feel shame. As I'm seeing more conditionality, it's interesting, over the years I'm a little bit clearer on accountability, kinder on accountability, clearer and kinder about what is needed to repair rather than punishment. It really takes the whole situation in a different direction by understanding some of the conditions and causes. So one of the things that we often say, we've said a fair amount in reflective meditation, is do your best and we'll do our best. And that phrase has been running through me as I was writing the talk. And what's the Dharma in that? What do we really mean by that? And it just seemed to say, like, we're not so in control of so many things, of a lot of things. And we really don't know where our desires may lead. And yet we do want to stay close to them and know them and actually follow them when they're more healthy and flourishing. But there's no guarantee of a result. So I think that it points to that we are developing compassion for each other as we are each finding our desires, our needs, our direction, our paths in life. And that is a really important piece of the practice. So that's it for now. I'll end here.